Welcome to the news. Top stories in our news today. National AIDS Council says the country has achieved a lot in fighting against HIV and AIDS over the past several years. A financial analyst has expressed fear that the 2% that was projected for 2019 financial year as growth rate of the Zambian economy will reduce to less than 1%. Welcome to the news. As Zambia joins the rest of the world in commemorating the World AIDS Day, which falls on 1st December every year, National AIDS Council says the country has achieved a lot in fighting against HIV over the past several years. Sunday, 1st of December, is globally recognized as World AIDS Day, but in Zambia, the commemorations will be held on Tuesday, 3rd December 2019, under the theme Communities Making a Difference, Pressing Towards Ending AIDS. Commenting ahead of the World AIDS Day commemorations, which will be held on 3rd December 2019 in Zambia, National AIDS Council Communications Manager Justin Mwinga says has stressed the need for community participation in helping reduce HIV new infections and stigma in the country. Mr. Mwinga has noted that it is in the communities where stigma happens and where the cases of religious leaders and traditional healers stop patients from taking ARVs are recorded. Mr. Mwinga has since stated that the country has made significant progress in the fight against HIV and AIDS as the annual infection rates have reduced from being recorded at about 100,000 to now being recorded at about 43,000 annually. Meanwhile, Civil Society's Scaling Up Nutrition Alliance is calling for concerted efforts among stakeholders in meeting the dietary needs of people living with HIV and AIDS. CSO Sun Country Coordinator Matthews Muhuru has noted that given the important relationships between HIV and nutrition, adherence to treatment highly depends on good nutrition. Mr. Muhuru says it is important that nutritional support becomes an integral part of the care plan of those living with HIV, especially infants. He says that Gwembe district, which is among the districts in the emergency state, it was discovered during the Child Health Week that malnutrition in children has increased, with cases of underweight going from 0.8% to 10% between the second and third quarters of 2019 alone, while undernourishment among adults was also on the increase, especially those living with the virus.
Is that, the food support that people are receiving in these areas is not enough. If you look at even just the partners that are working on the ground, that are taking relief food in the area, you realize that even places that are in emergency stages will just have probably 1 or 2 partners that maybe provided relief food 30 days prior to our engagement or with the community. And at this particular point, all stakeholders should not really depend on government to take this relief food, because we understand that government has a lot of other challenges that they are faced with, that they are currently dealing with. So if at all help is just dependent on government to go to these people that are been hit very negatively by food insecurity, then the likelihood of us losing a lot of lives and even just the cases of malnutrition and other illnesses that come as a result of hunger is likely to worsen. So we're just making an appeal to all stakeholders that have the capacity to deal with this issue to just come on board. I'm happy to also just announce that CSO Sun has partnered with Miracle Life Church to take relief food to about 4,800 people in Gwembe district. So this is something that would want other churches and other organizations and just individuals to really consider doing and just not wait on government.
And the Zambian Media Women Association, ZAMWA chairperson Caroline Kalombe, has urged government to continue supporting community-led initiatives to fight the AIDS pandemic so as to achieve the national agenda of ending HIV by 2030. In joining the rest of the world to commemorate the 2019 World AIDS Day, ZAMWA feels that this year's global theme, Ending the HIV and AIDS Epidemic Community by Community, is a reminder that everyone has a role to play in fighting the AIDS pandemic. Republican President Edgar Lungu has called on PF members to use the Milenge District Council Chairperson by-elections to demonstrate how peaceful the ruling party is. President Lungu wants PF members to show to other political parties taking part in the by-election that Zambia is one country. He says that he does not want to hear any reports of political violence during the campaigns, as he desires that the campaigns remain as peaceful as they are. Speaking upon arrival at Mansa Airport to drum up support for PF candidate Chanda Masheke in the forthcoming Milenge District Council by-elections, President Ed Kalungu advised party members to demonstrate that they are more mature than any other political party in the country. President Lungu has also called on the church not to be used for political battles, but instead unite the country. He has lamented what he has called stupid talk coming from some members of the clergy who are helping to divide the country in their discourse. A financial analyst has expressed fear that the 2% that was projected for 2019 financial year as growth rate of the Zambian economy will reduce to less than 1%. Senior partner at the Development Finance Associates, Trevor Hambai, says that the long hours of load shedding has contributed to the poor performance of the economy in the third quarter of 2019. Mr. Hambai says that the performance of the economy has been very difficult in the third quarter of this year. He has told QTV News in an interview that there has been no considerable economic performance of the economy due to hydroelectric power. Mr. Hambai says that the teething and frustrating load shedding trend has negatively affected small business entities because 90% of the economic environment in the country is driven by small sector entrepreneurship. He has since encouraged the government to address this issue of load shedding seriously.
But between you and me, we all know that the economy has been very difficult in the last quarter. Firstly, on the issue of power deficit, is that there's been no economic performance because of the absence of power, and this has actually been growing. We started with a 4-hour load shedding schedule. Now we've got 20-hour blackouts. So this has affected a lot of small business entities. You know that most of the 90% of our economic environment is driven by the small sector. So in essence, you find that the three things that have happened is that firstly, we have had a very high inflation rate, which has gone above 10%, 10.1%. We have an issue in terms of the liquidity in the country, that the arrears that government has taken has increased in the last quarter. And thirdly, you find that the interest rates have also gone up, which all speak to a depreciation in the performance of the economy. This is now being supported by the issue around the power deficit. So in essence, that the 2% that was projected for 2019 as growth in the economy, you realize that that will reduce to less than 1.5%.
The Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture, Land and Natural Resources has opposed the calls to allow mining activities in the Lower Zambezi National Park. Committee Chairperson Maxas Ngonga says that the committee will not succumb to traditional and commercial pressure to support projects of that endangered nature to take place in the Lower Zambezi National Park, allegedly to create jobs and incomes as suggested by some interested communities. Mr. Ngonga wants government to take precautionary measures to ensure that those who want to invest in Lower Zambezi National Park are found alternative places to mine minerals, pointing out that allowing extraction of copper and precious stones will negatively affect conservation of wildlife, the natural habitat, and human life existence will be compromised.
It's not something that we definitely can support. We know the mining sector has actually, been with us, and we as Zambians, we depend on the mining proceeds. But for a mining proceed to go and destroy a natural habitat, an area which is domiciled not only for tourism, but also, for sure. Some of these areas, those who were ahead of us preserved as natural resources, they were not preserved for us. They were preserved for the generations coming. Our grand and grandchildren that will be coming. We want them when they come to come and find some areas like the Lower Zambezi, which would tell them at one point Zambia was like this. And therefore, as a committee and on behalf of the committee, I would basically say that it's not a project that we would support ourselves. We would rather, the government takes whatever cautionary measures they can take to ensure that those who want to invest in the Lower Zambezi have found some other places where they can mine those minerals, while the Lower Zambezi is left as pristine, as an area where people can conserve the wildlife, the natural habitat, and the lake and the water flows that are there. It's not
The Council of Churches of Zambia says government is living in denial about the hunger situations facing the country. CCZ General Secretary Father Emmanuel Chikoya says government should not pretend that there is no hunger in Zambia, but ensure that they work together with stakeholders in effectively mitigate food shortages necessitated by a poor 2018-2019 farming season harvest. Father Chikoya says government is not seriously addressing issues to do with the climate change, as evidenced in the allocation of resources to the environmental sector in Finance Minister Walyangandu's 2020 national budget. Father Chikoya has urged the government to come up with proper, practical and measurable strategies to deal with climate change and the issues of hunger in the country.
I don't see properly and well thought out plans to mitigate the challenges, because droughts will continue to emerge. What is it that we shall do? If you model around the Bible, for example, in the story of Joseph, when they had a similar challenge, he was able to say we will have 7 years of plenty and 7 years of hunger, and therefore there was a proper preparation so that when those days and times of drought and hunger came, the nation had enough storages of food and reserves. So we seem not to be really getting it right in dealing with climate change challenges. Look at the budget, what has been allocated, so you can see that we are still in some kind of denial, and though this issue of climate change is being referred to and was over-referred to even in the speech in Parliament, meaning that the government is aware that it is a challenge, but can we also show that concern by equally channeling enough resources and also coming up with a proper kind of strategic planning and vision to deal with climate change and the issues of hunger as well.
Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa, Major General Jackson Miti, says the mission early next year will start receiving and processing applications for dual citizenship for Zambians living in that country. Speaking at a welcome gala dinner organized in his honor by Zambia Association in South Africa, ZASA at Scarlet Ribbon, Kempton Park, Johannesburg, Major General Miti says the process will facilitate acquisitions of Zambian citizenship for Zambians wishing to do so. Major General Miti says the challenges that prevented the process have now been resolved, adding that the mission will also resume immigration clinics in South Africa's major cities to sensitize Zambians on consular matters. He says that the High Commission will engage cooperating partners to assist in mobilizing resources for the immigration clinics, as it is one of the mission's agenda to ensure that Zambians are given assistance. Major General Miti further commended the association for doing a good job in helping unite Zambians in South Africa. And Zambia Association in South Africa President Ferdinand Simanya says that despite the association receiving reports of hurdles by some Zambians to acquire work permits, entry and resident visas, his association is generally happy with the welfare of many Zambians in South Africa. This is contained in a statement made available to Q News by First Secretary Press and Public Relations South Africa, Naomi Nyawale. Presidential Affairs Minister Freedom Skazwe has called on political leaders and members of the general public to respect the office of the presidency regardless of who is occupying it. Mr. Skazwe says the trend by those aspiring to rule the country ceaselessly casting aspirations and insulting President Edgar Lungu is unacceptable and should not be condoned. He has told QTV News in an interview that insulting or disparaging President Edgar Lungu will not solve the high cost of living, drought, climate change and poverty, to name but a few challenges currently facing the country. Mr. Skazwe says politics of hatred will not discredit the Patriotic Front leadership, as Zambians are able to see what President Edgar Lungu has done since he was voted into office in 2015. He, however, expects opposition leaders to put pressure on government on issues that continue to affect the country and the people of Zambia, as opposed to insulting the head of state unnecessarily.
I expect people to put pressure on the government on issues that really matter, on issues that surely everyone will say is this is happening as a result of the inefficiency of the government. But to be condemning the government on issues like load shedding, when you knew, everyone knows that there was no enough rains. Issue of meal prices, when everyone knows that we didn't have enough rains, despite the government putting in all the effort in terms of giving the farming inputs to the farmers, and then we failed to get enough maize, and then you blame on the government. I think it's being unrealistic. You were in the village with me when the issue of the price of meal was brought in Mpulungu, and I justified. I told them it's supply and demand. We have no enough maize, right? Even what we have now, the little maize that we have, is we're trying to spare some so that we can go up to the next harvesting season.
The Opposition United Party for National Development, UPND Media Director Ruth Dante has implored members of parliament to stand up as heroes and block Bill 10 to save the country's democracy. Ms. Dante says all political parties and independent members of parliament should be performing their duties of holding its executive and its members to account. She has alleged that Zambian politics are broken and that its institutions have failed following what she termed as a bizarre ruling made by the Constitutional Court. According to Ms. Dante, the Constitutional Court of Zambia has cracked people's hope and ruled that Parliament can go ahead to debate and pass the notorious Bill 10, stressing that now the onus to save the democracy lies solely with the National Assembly. He says the last solution to defend the little that is left of the democracy is now Parliament. And Youth Aid Chairperson Chungu Kachenga says the dismissal of the controversial Bill 10 by the Constitutional Court on Friday is an indication that the Patriotic Front is power-hungry. Mr. Kachenga has described Bill 10 as a ticking bomb for Zambia and that it must be withdrawn from Parliament. He is disappointed that despite many calls by members of the public to withdraw the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 10, no option has been taken, a sign that PF does not listen to the advice. Recently, Vice President Inongawina told Parliament that government will not withdraw the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 10 of 2019 because of demands by certain political parties.
We're very disappointed that despite the many calls, from the general public, from different stakeholders and activists, that no action has been taken. The PF government have proved once again that they are power hungry and they do not listen to the views of the public. Bill 10 is a ticking time bomb. Okay? It is a ticking time bomb. Bill 10 must be withdrawn from Parliament. Okay? There is no way you would give the President the right to contract debt in his own capacity, on behalf of the country. Okay, we know that since the PF took over, debt has been their trademark. Okay, we do not want Zambia to become, a debt-filled country. We are appealing to all stakeholders to make sure that certain actions are taken, especially parliamentarians. We are appealing to you to make sure that you do not entertain Bill 10. Because you are in Parliament to represent what the people of Zambia want you to represent them for. So the people of Zambia have decided and said no to Bill 10.
The Road Transport and Safety Agency has suspended all online platforms for settlement of speed fines under the road safety law enforcement. The agency has therefore reminded all motorists that all online platforms for settlement of speed fines remain suspended until further notice, and the public are urged not to pay speed fines using any online payment platforms. The agency has advised all motorists with unpaid speed fines to utilize Zanaco and Barclays Bank, among others, for payment over the counter using the 16-digit contained in the notification sent via SMS. This is contained in a statement issued by RTSM Head of Public Relations, Frederick Mubanga. Caritas Zambia Executive Director Eugene Kabilika has noted the need for a complete overhaul of the way Zambia's economy is being managed for the country to come out of the current debt distress it is in. Mr. Kabilika states that the country is currently under pressure as a result of the huge debt accumulation, which has affected the liquidity and hence affecting the prices of food in the country. He adds that the need to pay back the high debt has also affected the funding of granted aided schools and hospitals in the country, which is resulting in operations in these institutions being affected and the delivery of service being recorded below par. He has further noted that the increase in monetary policy rate, as was recently announced by the central bank, will result in lending rates by the banks going up, therefore limiting the capacity of majority of the people to borrow money, which they would want to use for operations and business expansions.
The way we have managed the economy, that is the root cause of the problem. Management of our economy, over borrowing and debt service is very high. The government do not have space in order to spend money apart from just salaries and also paying back. It's just like at your individual level. If you're at your individual level from your radio station, your salary is 100 kwacha per month, and then you borrow an amount of money where you have to repay your salary every time 50 kwacha of the 100. How much are you left? You are left with the 50 kwacha. So what do you do with the 50 kwacha? You have no expansion anymore. So it becomes very difficult. Now, if it is at the country level, now it affects every other person because the country now can't spend for health services, for education services, and it has difficulties to try and pay suppliers to eat in the hospitals who are supplying foodstuffs and that, and also in the boarding schools who are supplying. So we are seeing this, like most of the grant-aided schools and government-aided hospitals, they have not had their grants for some of them for the past 6 months, others 3 months and all that. That is the consequence of the high debt that we are experiencing at the moment. So it will require really a complete overhaul of the way we run our economy in order for us to recover.
The International Labour Organization ILO country representative George Okuto has emphasized the need for occupational safety at work to be upheld for the country to record the necessary high productivity levels. Mr. Okuto tells Q News that companies should never consider promotion of health safety as an added cost, as they will end up incurring greater cost should a worker get injured or be exposed to health risk while at the workplace. Mr. Okuto has noted the need for companies to agree to precautionary safety measures from the time they engage the worker and throughout. He has expressed worry that some instances at the workplaces, especially in industries, are as a result of workers being exposed to pollution because they are not given safety wares.
A healthy and uninjured worker is more productive than anyone. Now, the unfortunate situation is that normally the occupational safety at work does not immediately manifest itself. It could be, the workers have been exposed to some chemicals, to some fumes, and the impact on the health may be coming slowly and slowly. But what is very important that we do emphasize is all the precautionary measures need to be taken from day one when the workers are engaged. And this should never be seen as an additional cost to the enterprises. It should be part of their investment. You can imagine the costs that enterprises incur in treating sick employees because they have been exposed to bad working conditions.
ADO Secretary General Hanadiel Singh justifies that Zambia actively participates in ADO activities and pays membership fees on time. He urges Zambia to use its influence in the SADC region to persuade more countries to join ADO through Lusaka Provincial Office. Dr. Nadio Singh was speaking when he paid a courtesy call on Zambia's High Commissioner to India, Judith Kabichimpanga, in New Delhi, India. ADO, formed in 1962, is an autonomous intergovernmental organization comprising of 33 countries, promoting warfare and eradication of thirst, hunger, illiteracy, disease and poverty amongst hundreds of millions of rural people. And Zambia's High Commissioner to India, Judith Kabichimpanga, says she will lobby the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Child Development to host the ADO Executive Committee Conference in Zambia. She praises ADO for executing a livestock project in Mokoshi, Central Province. Mrs. Kabichimpanga adds that Zambia is looking forward to the implementation of the ADO proposal on aquaculture production among youths in Kafue District, Lusaka Province. This is contained in a statement released by First Secretary, Press and Tourism at the Zambian Mission in India, Bangwe, Navile. And finally, in our news, a Chinsali Member of Parliament, Kalarwe Mukosa, is gratified by the reduction in cases of teenage pregnancies and early child marriages. Mr. Mukosa has attributed the reduction to sensitization programs that stakeholders are conducting on the scourge in the constituency. Mr. Mukosa says he is closely working with traditional leaders in his constituency to ensure that the vice is curbed. The lawmaker has pointed out that Senior Chief Nkula is the most active traditional leader he is working with to curb the vice of teenage pregnancies and early child marriages. Ms. Mkosa says the continued sensitization on the vice has seen people coming out to report on such cases, which has helped record a reduction in new cases.
Our Senior Chief Unkola, he's been helping us greatly, and we are also collaborating with village headmen and other traditional leaders so that we can curb the vice. And also we have continued on the sensitization that there should be no parents who should be subjecting their children to early marriages, because it just destroys their lives. So we have engaged the traditional leaders, and we've continued with the sensitization process.
How is the situation?
The situation, well, we have seen that it is on the decline, because in the past what used to happen is that areas where there were early marriages, we never used to know about them. People were not reporting some of those issues because they found it to be normal. But with the sensitization, you find that people have become more alert, because even if it is not their child who is being married off, they are just neighbors, they will report that, oh, okay, our neighbor has done ABCD.
That's it from our news desk. It's bye-bye for now, and keep watching.